Hello, friends. Welcome to this special recording. This is an interview that I did on a fast growing podcast called the Personality Development Podcast by a friend, Aaditya Mehta. I've also had the reverse of that. I've had a conversation with him about his podcasting journey. But this video in particular is around self improvement and habit hacking, something that I'm so passionate about. And this was an interview that went on for quite a while, but it was very valuable and it was able to capture a lot of the things that encapsulate my personal journey and my findings. And I thought it would be valuable to have it on this channel as well. So I'm very excited to be presenting this. Do consider subscribing to Aditya's channel because he's got some great content. And if you are on a self-improvement journey, you want to improve your habits, do make sure to subscribe to this channel as well. All right, enjoy.
Hello everyone, this is Aaditya Mehta and you are listening to the podcast on personality development. Habits can make a person successful and happy, or it can literally destroy a person. So, how do we drop the bad habits from our lives and replace it with good habits? Well, today's show is going to be just about that. The guest of this show is the certified life purpose coach who helps finding meaning and purpose in life. He also guides with career direction, decision making, overcoming negative behavior patterns, and changing habits. And let us learn more about him from the man himself, Ojas Mehta. Hey Ojas, what's up? It's great to have you on the show.
Hey Aditya, thank you so much for having me. Very glad to be here.
Well, I'm really more glad today because the topic of today's show is really important for me as well. So, I'm sitting with my diary and pen right now so that, I can note it out all the things which you're going to share. And audience, I would suggest you that you also sit with book and a pen because I'm pretty sure whatever he's going to share today it's going to add so much value in your life. So without taking much of your time, Ojas, I'm really excited to ask you questions. But before that, if you can introduce yourself in much more detail, like what you do, where are you from, etc., etc. The mic is yours.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do that, and thanks again for having me. Um, really glad to be talking about habits, hacking habits, self-improvement. We came across this topic together. It's one of the things that I'm very passionate about, and yes, I do believe that I have a lot to share in this area. So I am an existential coach or life purpose coach. I primarily help people really connect with themselves, find their meaning in their life, something that is key to being motivated, to waking up in the morning, having something to live for, and purpose, which is more around what you're doing in your life and what you're working towards. So those are key areas that show up in my work. So I do one-to-one coaching, I do group workshops. I also do some community building by hosting circles. And lately, I've been putting in a lot of my effort and attention into making YouTube videos, similar to your podcast, Aditya. It is geared towards primarily mental health, self improvement, and self realization. These are the topics that are closest to my heart, and they show up a lot on the channel. And I do recommend you to check it out. Um, a little bit about me. I am from Mumbai, India, and I've lived in the UK. I've lived in Canada, and really, I feel that there's no place better than home. And India has such a rich rich heritage, such richness in the way of being. So I feel really connected, and although I'm a Canadian citizen, I still choose to be in India, and I feel that these these values we have, this yogic and sattvic system we have, is actually the same that we talk about in terms of self improvement and habits in the West. So it's really ingrained in us, and that's what makes it so meaningful for me to be here.
Wonderful, Ojas. I really appreciate you sharing a lot about yourself. And also, you shared about sharing circle in your introduction. Like you host sharing circle,
Yeah.
and I remember like I have been a part of it couple of times, and you know, it's just wonderful to be over there. And I really appreciate that space itself where everyone is speaking about it. But I would really love if you could share a bit about sharing circle as well, like what's that sharing circle and what people do in that.
Sure, interesting question. Um, for me, the sharing circle was a real game changer in my life, because until that point, I did not accept myself, um, and and I was not able to see people like me. I always felt I'm a little bit different. Society functions in a certain way, can be quite mechanical. No room really to really be vulnerable, to express your emotions and how you really are, and be different. Be independent, have independent views. And I finally came to this space through a dear friend, and I realized that, wow, there are so many more people like me. I'm not like an alien, isolated person. And I found belonging there. I found expression there. I found really unconditional acceptance and love. And that actually helped me to start loving myself, and start to realize that the way I see the world is actually very, very valuable. And it's possible that the rest of the world might really be having it wrong. They might be struggling, um, and having these independent views can actually be a valuable thing. And so it was really a meaningful experience. I got to meet a lot of amazing people, um, and it kind of became ingrained in me as a way of being, being more authentic, being not being afraid to be vulnerable, to be honest, to really to trust someone from the beginning. I think those were values that were there deep inside me, but they found resonance in the outside world. And so I've always been connected with them. I started circles in Toronto. I've had them at my home. I've had them online on Zoom, and we continue to have them in Mumbai and many other cities in the world. And you're welcome to get in touch. There is this Awaken Circles, AWAKIN, that happens all over the world in many cities, and it's just really an amazing space where we can connect authentically through silence. No small talk, uh, and really show up as who we are. Really being ourselves.
Wonderfully said, and I really appreciate the fact about sharing circle, and I truly believe that it is something which reminds you that you are not alone in this. There are people to support you. There are people to listen to you, and that's all we need. To be get into something and start doing something. So that's really amazing. So people of Mumbaikars, if you want to be a part of this sharing community, you are always welcome, and the link is mentioned in the description. So all you have to do is click on that link and you will be directed straight to the WhatsApp of Ojas Mehta, and he will tell you the entire process, right? So make sure to do that. Now, Ojas, let's get back to the topic now. Introduction and everything is done, and I'm really excited to the topic over here. So, my very first question is, what was one of your habit or maybe multiple habits which you dropped, and what are some good habits which you picked up in your journey of being a certified life purpose coach?
So habit tracking and habit hacking has been something which has been a part of my life for a very, very long time. As far back as I can think, there are things that I knew were wrong and I wanted to stop doing them. Things like sleeping too much. I just used to sleep too much. I was never happy with watching porn. And now there is like a whole thing about it, about how porn affects the brain. It just intuitively did not feel right. About coffee and stimulants in general. Later on, it was cigarettes. About playing video games. So FIFA was my video game, the football game, and just spending hours and hours on that. And essentially, all of them are things that affect your dopamine and that bring your mood up and down, that also make you dependent on those stimuli and take away your balance. And I did not know those things, but at an intuitive level I felt that that was something that had to change and that did not feel right. And it's been with me, as far back as I can think, from my teenage. And it really became, I went through cycles of trying different techniques of being frustrated, punishing myself, um, letting myself loose, binging on them, and all those different things. Uh, but I feel that there was always that desire to be my best self, and ultimately that intention, that is what shines through. And I did mention some of the habits. I'm at this point now where I've been able to successfully change maybe one major habit and then a few, another one. And there is so much increasing confidence now that I can tackle like 10, 12 habits at once. And I'm actually doing that through an app. And I will be sharing more about that later. But initially, I used to struggle to do even one, and if I take up 3 or 4 habits together, it just feels, so much of a torment, that after a few days, I would just end up, giving up and losing track with all of them together. So I started with one habit at a time, and it really, it really builds. You build up those streaks, and that's where the apps are helpful. And after a while, your confidence grows, and you're like, okay, I can do anything now, and it's amazing to have that level of self control and autonomy that external things don't have a hold on me, and I can shape the experience of life that I want. I can have the kind of energy levels I want, the kind of mood I want. um, I'm not going to give way to my desires or my cravings and things like that, and just an amazing sense of freedom and confidence that comes with it.
Wow, that's really amazing. I really love that. When you said that now you don't have any craving and you successfully covered it all up, and it's really amazing to actually just feel it. Okay, like there are many things in my life which I couldn't overcome till now. I really feel that after this episode, I'm pretty sure I'll be starting some new things so that I can be able to overcome that craving of bad habit which I have, to be very honest. So, but as you mentioned about smoking as well, like there was one instance when you spoke about smoking, and talking about porn and many other things, but these two in particular. Now most of the times when you do these two things, okay, like any one of the thing, let's say smoking, now people tend to have this habit in their mind that if they don't smoke, they do get angry, like they get frustrated. They do get like after eating, I need a cigarette, or after eating anything, I do need to have a cigarette. So all these things are part of the habit, and which is basically the habit which is built in our mind. So what would you suggest over there? And it is not related to smoking, but it is related to so many other things which we do on a regular basis, that we always feel that this needs to be done now, or else I'm getting frustrated, or my mind will not be in the right position. So what would you suggest over there?
Absolutely, Aditya, and thank you for asking the question. I can totally understand this whole cycle, feeling trapped, feeling a victim of this cycle that's ongoing, uh, and I know it. I can relate to it because I've been through it for many years. I have been a smoker. I have been addicted to it. Sometimes in denial, sometimes in like screw it, that is just how I am. I just want to be a hedonist and live the best life that I can, enjoy the moment. Any rationalization that we could make, or just a feeling of helplessness, no, I cannot do without it, or a sense of I did something well, so I deserve it now, or a sense of no, I'm stressed, so I needed to calm down, or a sense of somebody triggered me, so I need to do it. Whatever that excuse is, whatever that reason is, and we are on the topic of smoking. Let's just pick that, because that's a topic close to both of us, I guess, Aditya. um so yeah, like, firstly, I just want to acknowledge that it can be a difficult thing. And I guess from the thing you mentioned, the first thing that comes to my mind is it's all pattern, it's all habit, and we get into all kinds of habits, and habits can change. We are getting into new habits all the time. It might be a new job. Initially, it is difficult, but once we start doing it for 3-4 weeks, we get into the hang of it. We learn a new skill. We move to a different place. There are so we get acquainted with a new person in our lives, whether that's um, a romantic partner or a friend. There is always a pattern that is set through doing things repeatedly. But the important thing is that we are not helpless victims. We do have that power, and it's not a power that we need to literally drag our minds with a leash, like a dog or an animal, and do that. No, we can be on our side. We can be friends with ourselves, kind to our bodies, compassionate to our mind, and do it in a very gentle and easy way that feels good, that feels right, that happens naturally, organically. I would not do it any other way. Like, I have tried being, literally, I'm stopping one way of self harming, let's say cigarettes, by self harming myself, by punishing myself, by thinking badly about myself, uh, you know, s- kind of swearing at myself in my mind. Well, that's not a very kind approach, and it's not necessary. And you know
Hmm.
what? It probably won't work,
Right.
because there's going to be resentment towards yourself. There's going to be a sense of suppression, and so in a moment of weakness or vulnerability, it's going to come out again,
Hmm.
because you are not in full alignment that you really want to stop this. You are just overpowering this mind, and the mind is going to fight back, because somewhere there is a dissonance between me and my mind, like, oh, I want something, but there is this side of me that wants something. No, that's where the self connection comes in. And
Hmm.
um yeah, it's really important to be on your side, and to really to really be forgiving for whatever you've done so far, and to really want to do it. And it will happen. But honestly, I cannot stress this enough. The internal part, the intention, the conviction that I really want to do this, is far more important than any action or any strategy that you take towards quitting it. So I hope I've answered your question. Let me know if there's something in particular that you want me to pick on or elaborate on.
Yeah, I mean, you have definitely answered the question, but there are certain more things which I would like to say. I have heard this. Like I have been in one of the seminar of power of habits actually, and over there I heard this beautiful thing that habits cannot be dropped, but they needs to be replaced. Okay,
Hmm.
like when you have the trigger of,
Hmm.
let's say smoking. Okay, right, like the topic is about smoking, or the audience, I would like to say you that you can speculate any other thing which you have in your mind. Okay, like it's completely okay. So yeah, talking about smoking itself. So if let's say something is triggering you, okay, like someone has spoken to me rudely, or my boss has basically insulted me in front of the entire office, and now I need to have a cigarette. So the moments of triggers, when it occurs, you actually do something else, something which makes you feel good instead of smoking. Okay, so, what do you say about that approach over here? Because I heard it somewhere. I would say it was 60 to 70% successful, not entirely. So, what would you like to say on that?
Sure. So yes, I agree. It is important to substitute one habit with something else,
Mm-hmm.
partly because there is a certain amount of energy and time that you have invested in one habit, which you now want to change, which you feel is hampering the quality of your life. So you're going to have a surplus of time and a surplus of energy, and you want to find something else to put it in. So just to give you an example of, so when I was quitting coffee,
Mm-hmm.
I did need to give myself another drink which is also delicious and which also gives me a kick. So I went to tea.
Mm.
And then when I wanted to stop tea, because that is also a stimulant, coffee
Mm-hmm.
was the bigger one. But
Right.
then after a point, even tea is a stimulant, and I want to get rid of that as well. So then I went to green tea.
Mm.
And I made the green tea very, very interesting by putting some herbs and some fruits into it, and adding lemon and honey and ginger. And I do it to this day. And I used to crave my morning chai,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't anymore. I crave this amazing healthy morning drink now. So it has been replaced. In the case of smoking, yes, I totally understand, because there were all these breaks that, for example, at work that we take to go smoking, and typically there are these windows, immediately after food, or maybe after a meeting, or maybe when there is like this 15-minute break at work, or maybe first thing in the morning, last thing at night. All these moments, right? Um, and yes, it can definitely be helpful. I wouldn't recommend any one thing in particular that you can use as a substitute. I would
Mm-hmm.
encourage you to build that connection with yourself and find something which works for you, which feels like a right kind of substitute. For me, it was nicotine gum. Plain
Okay.
and simple. I used to have, as soon as I feel that the craving is oncoming, I would chew nicotine gum. It would give me something to keep doing, with my mouth. It would give me the release of nicotine. And I've been through this quitting smoking cycle for many times, like many times. There were so many relapses, but it's totally okay. We want to give ourselves unlimited chances, unlimited
Right.
passes to come back. That self connection, that is the most important thing, because if you're not with yourself, if you're not with on your side, then what's the point of anything? I mean,
True.
because yeah. So we need to keep that self connection going. For me, people say that you can get addicted to the nicotine gum, you can get addicted to whatever. um, but the body kicks in. The body wants to be in its optimal shape, but we are constantly poisoning it, and we keep doing it again and again, and we sustain it in a certain state. And when you start to take away that poison, the body automatically fixes itself. And after a point, I don't need the nicotine gum anymore. Then sometimes I might chew regular gum, and then not even that, and then it just goes away. And another thing I want to say is, I've realized that there are this whole cycle of, sorry, not a whole cycle, a whole spectrum of feelings that you go through when you're quitting something. The first day, and then day 2 and 3, which can be really really depressing. Like, I would say those are the hardest. And then there's like a little kind of moment of peace, and then there's another bout of craving, and then there is a determination, and all these phases that go on throughout the whole 21 days. Like, I just tell myself, if I relapse right now, do I want to go through that whole phase again? Do I want to go through the depression of day 2 and 3 again? And that's something that makes me not want to go through it. Not relapse, because I know I want to quit. I'm very sure I want to quit. And and I know how difficult those days 2, 3, 4 can be. So why put myself through those days again and again? Why not just get done
Right.
with it for once?
True. Wow, that is really amazing. Having that, you know, realization that going through one and the same thing again and again, I think it's a great lesson for me as well, and I'm definitely sure it's a great lesson for all the people who are trying to quit a habit which is bothering them a lot. Sometimes they say it as guilty pleasure. Like, it gives pleasure, but they are guilty of it. And I do, recognize one of your videos, in one of your YouTube videos, you mentioned about not to being guilty of what you are doing. So what's that about? Like, if you could, shed some light on that, of not being guilty about what you are doing.
Yeah, so ultimately, uh, we want to be on our side. We want to be a friend to ourselves. And uh, and there's no, there are no two people here. We are one. And there is no enemy, really. It's not an enemy that can be conquered through shaming, or through feeling guilty or bad about ourselves. And uh, if you look at it from an outside perspective, let's say with your partner, let's say you
Mhm.
blame someone, you make them feel guilty, you guilt trip them. When has it ever been successful at bringing about change in them, or
Right.
bringing about some desired effect? So really, some of the things that we do, we feel we've tried,
Hmm.
and there might be a sense of frustration. There might be a sense of, like I'm not strong enough. um, we may not have tried things the right way. We may have tried it with a lot of guilt, with a lot of a sense of, uh, this is not right. I am not good enough if I have this habit. Um, and at any level, if we are saying that who we are is unacceptable, then we are invalidating ourselves. And and really, please don't do it. I mean, it's um yeah, it starts from a basic value of ourselves, and knowing that life is worth it, that we are good and worthy, and that brings about a desire to be our best. and from there stems everything, right? So when there is self love is such an overused concept. But when there is kindness and compassion towards oneself, then there is no room for anger, no room for hatred, no room for guilt. Of course, they will still keep coming because they are patterns. They're not just your patterns, they are social patterns. Everybody goes through them. But we can be more mindful of them and we can try to conquer it with love.
Wonderfully said. Self love is something which, could take you to a long distance. And I think that is something which most of the people, understands, but it implementing that is a challenge over here, I feel, because most of the times we see people, taking the shame on themselves, like I'm not good enough is the very common statement which is normally used by most of the people I have met as well. So with and sometimes it is just, it is like you can figure it out just by looking at the face of the person, that he has a feeling in himself that he is not good enough. And sometimes they are not confident while speaking. Sometimes they just talk about something else, and that becomes a big problem for them as well. So I feel self love is something which is challenging sometimes when you are trying to do something which is not in your comfort zone. But as one of my friend on this podcast itself said, that when you are nervous, when you feel that you are nervous and you couldn't do anything, perfectly, it's a sign that you are moving out of your comfort zone. So it's completely fine to feel that, and you are just learning something new, and you have the courage to step out of your comfort zone, and that's a big step which you are taking. So congratulations, and just pat yourself on the back. So I just
Absolutely.
remembered that uh, over here, and that's a really, I think I can relate with what you said right now related to self love. However, so much to talk about dropping the habit, right? But how can we actually cultivate a new habit? That's Let's just transition our subject from dropping the bad habit to cultivating a new good habit. Okay, so as many people want to start a new habit, like for me, instance, I want to start a new habit of waking up early in the morning and going for a jog. Although I do wake up early in the morning, but I don't go for a jog because I feel like, okay, I can just walk a bit at my own place rather than going out for a jog in the garden. And it's all laziness which comes into the mind, right? So, that's one thing. Many people wants to, start a new habit about book reading. Some people who wants to start a new habit, let's say savings, which is a big problem for me. I can't save money, to be very honest. So, how can you cultivate a new habit? Okay. And as I mentioned earlier, and even you mentioned the same, that you have to replace a bad habit with the good one. Okay. So, how can you do that? How to cultivate a new habit which that it is going to be really, really helpful for you?
Yeah, good question, Aditya. Thank you. So, a couple of things come up that I want to share. I would say that if you're asking to quit smoking and replace that with taking up reading,
Hmm.
well,
Not going to work.
that is being very ambitious. Like
Yeah.
not even ambitious. That's just being, you know, downright impractical. You're setting yourself up for failure, right?
Right.
So I would focus on one habit, which is the smoking part, and replacing it with something which comes very easily and naturally.
Hmm.
So we want to minimize the resistance. We want to minimize the pain. Okay,
Hmm.
and there is a different habit, which is, let's say you have free time and you could be spending that time reading, but you end up, let's say, watching Netflix or
Yeah.
browsing social media, and that's another habit altogether. So yeah, that's what I would just say, that let's not be too ambitious.
Hmm.
Similarly, when you mentioned about waking up in the morning and going for a jog, that is like classical, like, those are two big things that we want to do at the same time. And whilst the intention is very noble, and whilst we do sincerely aspire to that, and we do want to get there, and we will get there for sure, I have got there, um, over the years, going through so much of self-doubt, going through, so many trying phases. But you know what? It's all worth it. And I've got there, so we can. But I think I stumbled many times trying to do it like this. Like, hey, I want to wake up, and as soon as I wake up, I want to get into my clothes and my shoes, and I want to go and run like 5-10 kilometers. You know what? The thought of running would would discourage me from waking up. It's like, oh my god, I have to run, and like I have to wake up and run now,
Right.
right? It just increases the barrier, right?
Yeah.
So one thing at a time, right?
Sure.
That's what I'm trying to say. So
Right.
let's pick on one habit, okay? Let's go with which one? Waking up in the morning or going for a jog? Which one? You tell me.
Well, I already wake up in the morning, so going for a jog, that would be the priority over here.
Yeah. So for me, it all started with a friend, a dear friend, who um, who I was talking to and telling him, I want to run, but I never make a start, and I've seen his um, transformation journey, how he really lost a lot of weight and became fit, and a change in his confidence and all of that, right? And I look up to him for that. And he told me, um, you know, don't plan too much. Don't think about making it a habit or doing it for this much time. If possible, today, just go for a run for 10 minutes.
Hmm.
And if you like it, and if you're able to, try and do it again tomorrow. Okay?
Wow. Okay.
Just 10 minutes. And I literally did that. Like, I did not push myself any more than 10 minutes. You know what? I was in the middle of that conversation. I was wearing slippers. I did
Hmm.
not have running gear. I
Hmm.
happened to be in my balcony or, outside the house. I just went, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, like 10 minutes, right? You hardly even break a sweat. It was nothing.
Hmm.
And then I did it for the second. I just happened to do it for a second day. And you know what happens after 2 days?
Hmm.
You build a streak. So on the third day, you either reach a 3-day streak or you break your 2-day streak. You don't want to break it. You want to keep
Uh,
going,
right.
right? It's so easy. It's only 10 minutes
Hmm.
and you get to build a streak. And the longer
Right.
the streak goes, now you have something to build towards. You don't want to break
Hmm.
your streak.
Right.
And and for me, that is the single biggest thing I can say to keep it so easy, the goal so simple, and with the least like barrier of resistance, that doesn't feel like a force, that it can just happen naturally, and then let your own excitement, uh, and the feel good take over and keep you going, rather than having to drag yourself and do
Hmm.
it.
Wow, that's amazingly said. And as you mentioned, that taking it slowly, like not to take it on the, like not to get very ambitious on the very first day. But you talked about streak as well, and that streak, I would say, I mean, I used to run, jog, and I used to go for an evening walk and jog, I would say. But what happened was that once you have a streak of, let's say, 30 to 35 days, okay, but when that streak is broken, uh, it really pains so much that most of the people would feel, I would say most of the people like me would
Mm-hmm.
feel that now what's the point? I mean, I broke a 35-day streak,
Mm-hmm.
and now let's just forget it. Maybe I'll start after a week and continue the streak, create a new streak, or maybe after 2 weeks, and we just try to postpone, like one after the other, after the other, after the other. We never start another streak. So what would you like to say over there?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And actually, you've come up with really good questions. And I've almost ended up covering, although there's so much to talk about, habits and self-improvement. All of the key things I've ended up mentioning, and it's because of your questions. Uh, right? And that also tells me that you're somebody who cares about this journey towards becoming a better person, and you've been through these challenges, which is why you're coming up with these questions,
True.
right? So so that's where the free passes come in. And how many free passes do you get? Unlimited free passes. So that doesn't mean that you take things for granted, but if you break a 35-day streak, then you just skip that day and you just move on to day 36 the next day. It's okay.
Wow.
That's where the self love comes in, like I'm not going to beat myself up for not doing it for one day. It's okay, just carry on.
Wow. I'm
Yeah.
really enjoying this conversation right now, and it's becoming really interesting, giving a pass to yourself. And that's like having having an ice cream, extra ice cream, in the banquet hall where you are just allowed to get one, but you can have two or maybe three, and that just gives us happiness, right? So I think that's one thing which I really really appreciate of having a free pass. It's completely fine to skip that day and start with day 36. I wish I would have met you earlier, but it's fine. I mean, Dera Durasta is the very common thing in India, I would say. So it's really helpful over here. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm almost at the last question right now, Ojas, and this last question I ask to all the guests who comes on the show, right? And I'll be asking the same question to you as well.
Mm-hmm.
If people wants to get connected with you, if people wants to ask questions, if people have more questions about their well-being, how can they find you and how can they get connected with you?
Sure, and thank you for this space, Aditya. So my brand, with all my work, is called the Existentialist,
Hmm.
and a lot of the content is on YouTube. Although I have a blog and Instagram page and everything, but if you just search for the Existentialist, it's there on Facebook, it's there on Instagram. But mainly there are a lot of videos on YouTube, specifically around self-improvement and habit hacking. There is a whole playlist full of videos. I'm in the process of making them, but a lot of all of the things and more that we have talked about today uh, is going to be there, or is already there, uh, in more detail, in as a separate topic.
Hmm.
So do check that out. Apart from that, I do have a website at theexistentialist.org, which has all the different ways of getting in touch and keeping in touch. Um, and you already mentioned WhatsApp, Aditya. So I'm totally okay to put the WhatsApp number in the description if somebody wanted to get in touch, either to receive some coaching around meaning and purpose in life, or around habits. I'm happy to have a chat and see if it might be beneficial.
Wow, that's wonderful. And audience, I know, it's going to be little difficult to memorize all these things. So everything will be in the description. You are just a click away from Ojas Mehta. Don't forget to click that link and go straight on his website. Well, with that being said, we are almost at the end of the show. Ojas, would you like to share, any last notes with the audience over here?
Hmm. So, uh, I just want to say that this is a really cool podcast, and I'm very happy to be here. And I think you, as a host as well, you have this way of bringing out the best in people. And I've actually been on the other side, so um, I have a section on the YouTube channel, which is In Conversations With, where I have conversations with interesting people. My whole take of that is people who are following their purpose and doing something unconventional towards the service of others. But I feel that the people who are listening to this podcast are people who really care about being their best selves, because it is about personality development. And I guess if there's something I can say, it is that it's worth it. Like, the way you feel at the end of it. I used to only feel that kind of high when I was on coffee, on cigarettes, on weed, but now I can feel that all the time.
Wow.
From waking up in the morning at 6 to going to bed at 11, uh, I can feel myself. I can feel those levels of energy. I can feel that, uh, that sense of well-being. So yeah, it's worth it.
Wow, that's wonderful. Having a cake for an entire day. I mean, who doesn't want that, right? I mean, I want it, and I'm pretty sure I am going to get connected with Ojas, and I'm already connected with Ojas. So you guys are just, I really don't want you guys to left behind. So make sure to get connected with Ojas. And with that being said, I will request you, if you feel that this podcast and this episode adds value in your life, then make sure to share it with your loved ones as well. This is Aditya Mehta along with Ojas Mehta signing off from this episode. See you in the next one. Till then, peace out.